Hello and welcome back. Before we get to part 2, Real Talk, please allow us to fulfill our capitalistic duty and plug our Patreon, the Contrarians Supplements.
That's right. For a small fee, you too can help the Contrarians rage on.
We have tiers ranging from just $1 to $10. It all depends on how much content you can handle.
Starting at $1, it's the Travolta's tier, which gets you access to new bonus episodes focusing on a new movie every month, as well as access to the patron chat. Join other patrons in making fun of our opinions.
Moving up to $3 is the Winoni's tier, which unlocks access to our pre-recording notes, our video reviews, and our spin-off show, Contrarians After Hours.
That's a more laid-back space where we talk about other things we've been watching, reading, playing, thinking about. Sometimes it's related to the movies being covered in the main feed, but it usually isn't.
If you want to be part of those patrons who help us shape the show by telling us which movies to tackle, that's when you sign up for the $5 tier, the Embries, and the $10, the Gads.
Finally, all supplement subscribers, regardless of the tier, get access to our archive of special patron projects. Head over to patreon.com/contrarianprime now to join.
Be sure to listen through the end of the episode to find out what's coming up to the Contrarian Supplements this month. Now, it's time for some Real Talk.
The moon rises and then the sun downs, and then the sun rises and the moon downs. Kinda makes you wonder what happened first, huh? Well, it's a trick question. There's no such thing as before or after in a loop, just a simple repeating circle. There is a rhythm to it, but sometimes it expands just a little bit, slips slightly out of time, and some slips are one-way trips. Colfax and Depew have the urgency to go back, but they don't have the means. They want Frank to show them the way, but that moment's already fixed. When you can't change time, it almost certainly will change you. It can even drive you mad. Every step forward takes you closer to the beginning. I just wish they all would have picked a better starting point.
All right, Julio, and we're back. Real Talk for the 2022. It says the initial release was June 13th of 2022, so I imagine that would have been one of, or possibly its first premiere. Quantum Cowboys. To this point, I haven't found anything in the way of budget or really, its release history. An interesting movie. I think that's a word that will be used at least a few times by myself as we move through the second half of this episode. I did find it has a Blu-ray release from Vinegar Syndrome, which is an outlet that I have frequented in the past. They released a Blu-ray special edition of Hitman Hart Wrestling with Shadows, and they also remastered and released the Glow documentary that I'm such a big fan of on Blu-ray. And I'm looking at the box art is awesome. It's like an old saloon wall with paintings of the different characters from the film. I do love also their website. I remember this from when I bought the movies that I did. It limits to one per customer. So people, because they're a special edition, so they don't want people just buying them up and reselling them for massive markups. They're for the fans, man. I don't know if I'm going to be owning this anytime soon, especially because it does come with a bit of a price tag. Looks like it's $40.
So you can only get the Vinegar Syndrome edition.
I don't know if it's on Blu-ray anywhere else. It would have to be. Here we go. Amazon Blu-ray, $26.49. A film by Jeff Marslet. Julio, I had no idea what I was in for with this. When you mentioned it, I Googled it and I said to you, "Oh, Lily Gladstone." And that was the extent of it. I didn't even do my cursory glance at the images search on Google just to get an idea of what I was in for. Had I would have been like, is this like different movies? Do I need to make sure I get the right one here? What did you know about this?
Very little. I knew that Katie and Oti were big fans. I knew that they'd been championing this movie on their podcast, and I knew it was animated. That's the extent of it. I didn't even know about Lily Gladstone until you brought it up, last episode. I definitely didn't know about David Arquette. I didn't know anything. I had no idea that it was the trip, I guess, that it is. And even, this was probably your experience too, but we're like 30 minutes into the movie and I still didn't know what exactly I was in for. I knew it was short. That was the other thing that you had brought up, and I was like, all right, that's good. That's even if this ends up being something that I never connect to, at least it's a short ride. So, I mean, I don't know, Alex, how did you feel? Like, you kind of alluded to it in Contrarians Corner. It doesn't take long for you to figure out what kind of movie this is. You may not know what it's about and what's going to happen, but
yeah, we were less than 10 minutes in, and I was just like, huh?
But were you filled with apprehension, or were you excited? Or
I think the immediate response was I turned it off at that time because I was like, I'm not in a place
fuck this.
No, it wasn't that. It was just like I was still doing a little bit of work. So I'm like, this is obviously something that's going to require my full attention. So I turned it off initially just to circle back to it when I could devote my attention to it. Not apprehension. And, we had a long discussion about Southland Tales, and neither of us praised that movie, but, the idea of ambition, it's like, all right, well, they're trying something here. And obviously this movie was trying something visually as well. I was not expecting it to take as many turns as it did visually. About halfway through, I looked it up and it was like, oh, there's, a dozen different animation types they use in this. So when I returned to it and quickly realized this movie isn't particularly interested in making sense, which I think the writer and director, if he was here, Jeff, would probably argue that. But I think part of this is just it's an experience. And so just kind of letting that wash over me made it easier to digest. If I had been trying to really piece it together, I would have found myself kind of chuckling even more so at how pretentious I found certain aspects of this.
Man, are we going to have a new version of the Ricochet conversation where it was my failing trying to have Ricochet make sense, and you were like, just enjoy the ride, man. Enjoy Denzel.
Ricochet is a better movie than this.
Imagine if Ricochet was animated. Now,
my God,
now you're cooking.
It's like Odessa, and the animated shock waves go through the screen.
All right, let's get to the quotes so that we can really delve into this.
Yeah, I want to know what Katie and OT have to say.
Yeah, well, so there's obviously, because they're on Rotten Tomatoes, and we know the Rotten Tomatoes is 100% fresh, then you know that their quotes are fresh, which I mean, also, I said they were championing the movie on their podcast, so it makes sense that they would be fresh. So I went to Letterboxd for some different opinions, for a little bit of negativity, just to provide some balance. So from Letterboxd, Carter.mov, like MOV? How would you pronounce that? Because it's like the extension for a movie file, right?
Oh, yeah. Mauve. I think is what I used to call it.
Yeah,
I used those back in college. Yeah.
Carter.mp4.
There you
he
go.
watched Quantum Cowboys on July 24th, 2025. That's just a couple months ago. Gave it 2 stars. Says, some of these animation styles are pretty cool, but most of them are just filters from 2013 photo booth.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not wrong. You reference it from time to time, Alex, how Instagram has kind of maybe not ruined, but perhaps exposed how easy it is now to alter a photograph or
or a video clip or some shit.
Yeah, now you're just like, oh, that's just an Instagram filter. That's not a big deal. Another one, Georgia, watched this April 17th, 2023, and says, unfortunately, creativity does not always equal quality. Probably needed to be at least 20% more baked to really enjoy this one.
I like the start of that. The creativity doesn't always mean quality. That's absolutely valid.
Do you think this movie improves if you're high or at least a little drunk?
If I was stoned watching this, I would get bored. So I don't know. That's more in my youth. I would subscribe to theories like that. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're high, some comedies are way funnier and some action movies are like way more fuck yeah. But I am old enough to kind of realize that if you have to rest on the crutch of you have to be stoned to enjoy it or to get it, I'm doing like very dramatic air quotes right now. That's just a crutch.
Yes, I agree. I don't know why I suddenly imagine somebody having a bad trip and getting a hell of a panic attack watching this movie.
It's those things are meant to enhance experiences, not make them.
Man, beautifully put. That could have been something that somebody in this movie said. David Arquette just downs his shot and then hits you with that little bit of wisdom.
It's meant to enhance experiences, not make them.
We'll get back to the champ.
Sometimes I think about going home. Sometimes home ain't always home.
Another one, Lachlan. Watched this October 6, 2022. Maybe. 2 stars. All these were 2 stars, by the way.
I should have been in it.
Yeah. You get Arquette and you get a nobody to be next to him. Due respect to whoever was partnered with David Arquette, but he's not a name the way that David Arquette is. October 6, 2022 says, I'm happy someone took a big swing and made this movie. I am less happy that I watched it. It just wants to be a cult classic so badly, and that desperation is palpable and off-putting. Fun idea, though.
It does reek of desperate is way too dramatic a word.
Okay.
Yearning for acceptance is what this movie reeks of. But a very specific type of acceptance, not an acceptance like on the level of like The Wizard of Oz or Titanic or something. But yes, it does want to be revered and regarded. Man, if this guy told me Richard Kelly was his favorite filmmaker, I'd be like, yep.
I would be like, I think you mean Linklater? Richard Linklater? Have you seen Waking Life?
No.
I saw it a long time ago. Like, I don't remember feeling that Waking Life was pretentious. I honestly, I didn't think that this was pretentious either. And I didn't feel desperation. But what it made me think of is when you are at a party and there's a group of people that are having a conversation and you can feel that they think that what they're saying is really funny or interesting, and they're talking a little bit louder than normal because they want everybody else to know as well. You know what I'm talking about? It's like they're not just having a conversation among themselves, they're having a conversation for the entire room.
This movie is the guy at the college party who brings out the acoustic guitar.
Oh my God. Yes. And he's not a bad player, but you're like,
but it's just unnecessary.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, we all could have had a laugh after one song, but he does the whole set.
Exactly. Yeah. He plays, he does the opening chord of Freebird and everyone laughs and then he plays the whole song.
Yes. And then when it's over, he's like, part 1 of the Arizona anthology.
Up next, Wonderwall.
All right. Back to some positivity with Katie and Oti's reviews, or quotes rather. Katie said, the texture layers in the visuals match the complex and straight-through narrative that grounded the experience of creating and consolidating memories. And OT said, initially disorienting, its eclectic visuals grew on me, leading to a captivating experience, a multiverse western that offers a thought-provoking, cosmic adventure through time and space. And I will agree with 2 things here, for sure. One, I really like the idea of a movie dealing with the concept of memories and what creates them. At what point does a memory become true, even though it may not have been at some point? It's like you believe something, you remember something a certain way for long enough, it becomes the truth, right? Unless you have a time machine and you can like relive the experience, your memory is what you have to rely on. And what happens when there's conflicting memories, right? Like I remember things a certain way, you remember them a different way, and which one is the truth and how do we arrive there? I mean, I think that is, man, you can mine that for a hell of a movie. I'm not sure that this movie does that. I think that it pays lip service to it, and then it kind of goes and does its own thing. And then the other thing is that OT called it thought-provoking, and I think it does in the sense that it forced me to think about it, right? It's active watching for sure. I mean, there's a reason why you stopped it. Much like you, I benefited from having to give it my full attention no matter what, because I got on the stationary bike and I started playing the movie. Mm-hmm. Because it was like, it's 100%. I know they both Katie and Oti liked it a lot. So I wanted to just watch it, give it a run through without taking notes. And then today I watched it and took notes while I was doing other stuff, But yesterday I paid attention and it was making me think about stuff. Maybe not the same things that the movie wanted me to think about, or maybe I didn't agree with the movie, but I think that there's merit in creating a piece of media, a piece of art that engages your brain. So I know it sounds like a little bit like a backhanded compliment, or like I'm trying to really hard to like put a positive spin on me not being as captivated by the movie as Katie and Oti, but I agree with those two things for sure. And there's a couple other things. But that's it for quotes, Alex. And I guess just to go back to that guy with the acoustic guitar for a moment, that dude's not a bad dude. I mean, I'll probably hang out with him again, but I will shudder every time that he brings up the acoustic guitar. I'll warn my friends. I'll be like, oh, just so you know, this might happen. I guess what I'm saying is like, I might make fun of it, but I wouldn't resent that guy for doing that. And I don't resent this movie for doing it. No. I guess I would resent that guy if he was an asshole. But if he's just like a guy that, is maybe getting a little too carried away, then he's like this movie where I kind of like get that the people who made this are very passionate about the things that they're saying. I just don't think that they're saying them very clearly, at least not to someone like me. Like, I'm not in the inner circle. And I was having... my biggest problem with Quantum Cowboys is kind of what I kept complaining about in Contrarians Corner. I can't make heads or tails of it. Now that we're in real talk, Alex, how much sense did this make to you? Like, as far as the plot?
At base level, it did, but like for it to all just pay off in the message of like, you can't change the past or what you perceive the past to have been. But, you have a 50-50 chance on whatever, of the finding what you want in the future. I don't, for all of that, like to go in a big circle and then have me just being like, okay, that's the message of this. I agree. I wouldn't fault that guy. And I also am fine with, there's not anything I really disagree with heavily in the reviews you read there from KT and OT. If you're into this movie, if this catches you, it's perfectly fine. I would push back if someone starts talking about being like revelatory or like groundbreaking or some big fucking lightning rod in the genre. I could follow the basic idea of and like character motivations and whatnot, but again, I think a lot of this movie exists to be intentionally confusing and intentionally vague and to make itself seem as though it is deeper than it is.
Yes. I mean, I think that I don't think that it's pretending. I guess there's two options, right? One, it has very deep ideas and it just failed at communicating them, right? Like they have so much they want to tell us about life and quantum mechanics and the idea of multiverses and whatever, but the narrative doesn't do those ideas justice. Or, what you just said, it's like, no, they don't really have anything to say, but they're kind of pretending that they do. You throw enough big words and hints of ideas, and then it kind of seems like maybe there is something to your movie. And maybe sometimes that's enough, right? Like if you do that and that provokes a conversation or that provokes other thoughts, then really you didn't need to do anything else.
Do you believe in ghosts? Of course you do, everyone does. We all find patterns in the chaos around us. We make sense of things whether they actually make sense or not. And once we believe in those patterns, we give them a face. We edit the details into one coherent narrative. Right then, at that moment, a ghost is born.
I am a very particular... I'm not going to call myself particular for wanting, my stories to make sense, but I think that that's something that certainly colors the way I watch a movie, and longtime listeners know this, is like my instinct is to try to make sense of it, right? And so whenever a movie starts setting out the rules and explaining to me how some things work, then I try to follow those rules to completion, right? Beginning to end. And when something breaks those rules, or when there are things that go on unexplained and it feels like I should know what's happening, because it's okay if you don't want to explain something, and I understand, and that's the purpose. Like the intention is that we're not supposed to know what's happening. But there are plenty of times in this movie where I felt like I was supposed to know what was happening, or at least be more clued in than I really was. And man, if I hadn't watched the movie twice, because like I said, I watched it yesterday on the bike and then today while I was taking notes, if I hadn't watched it twice, maybe I would be a little more unsure, or maybe I would tell you I could have missed something. But I watched it twice. I can tell you I didn't miss anything. Or if I did, it was something that was very low key. I think that the movie could do better if there is an explanation, a more solid explanation to the things that happen. I think that the movie could have done a better job of giving us that. And I think also, I felt at times that maybe it was a budget thing, right? This is obviously an independent production. And sometimes I would get the feeling that there were some things that maybe they just didn't get to shoot. And so you have the narrator give you the cheap version of that, which is just him explaining. They put the movie together and they realize that maybe, you can't quite tell that Bruno is having an issue with Frank having caused the death of Blackie. So we're going to have the narrator say it out loud. So it's very clear.
Yeah.
And then it just feels clunky. It just feels like, this is not, the craft is not good there.
The whole memory character is so annoying to me.
Do you think it would work better if you just don't have him?
Yes.
I'm thinking so too. Like I hadn't thought about it till just now, but
it would be more confusing, but I would welcome that 10 times out of 11 times out of 10, as I like to say, over a character that reoccurringly shows up to tell you, what you're supposed to interpret this scene as.
And it doesn't even help. I think that's the worst part.
No.
Yeah, man, give me the original cut, the no memory cut, the memoryless cut, where it's just a lot of random shit happening to these cowboys.
What's good brother's name? Patrick Page. We'll find some other work for you, brother. Just not here.
You can play one of the Johns. We didn't talk about that scene in Contrarians Corner, but there's an extended sequence where they just go into this bar and there's 3 guys named John, right? There's the bartender, I think, is John, and there's the guy that's playing the guitar.
I immediately was like, Julio's going to hate this scene. Did you? Because it was like noise and a bunch of things that were, I guess, supposed to be funny that weren't.
It's the closest it comes to shtick. It might just be shtick, actually.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think if it had been like a live action movie, I probably would have hated it. As it was, I was more like impatient. Because it became clear that, you know what I mean? Like it was very clearly a comedic set piece that was not going to advance the plot in any way. And I'm like, I get it. It's funny because, they're playing terrible music and the guy thinks that he invented the, whatever you call the thing for the guitar, he's using the broken bottle and then the couple comes out of the top floor and they're like, no, I invented it. And she's using a gun. And I'm like, all right. I was like the guy at the end of the scene, the old guy that kind of like shoots the chandelier. It's like, enough. But yeah, there's 3 Johns there. And I was like, is this supposed to be something? Oh, I'll tell you what. The first time I was watching the movie, I was trying to figure out if the 3 guys, the bartender, the guitar player, and the piano player, if they were all the same actor. With adjustments in the animation or whatever. I was like, is that the joke? That it's the same actor playing 3 characters that have the same name? I don't think it is, though, because the end credits, I'm pretty sure that they assign those characters to different people. But, you have a movie with multiverses. I guess you can get away with a lot of this shit. Anyway, that's as negative as I'm going to get about the movie. Or like, the biggest negative point is just I think it needed less explanation if it was going to make this little sense. You nailed it. It didn't need the narrator. That's really what would have made it so much better. Or, if you're gonna have a narrator, then you need better narration. You need something that was a little more inviting when it comes to explaining stuff. But there's stuff still that I enjoyed. And man, you called out Lily Gladstone. I think you enjoyed her in this movie better than I did. I mean, I think she was fine, but I think that my appreciation for her performance here is heavily influenced by how much I like her in Killers of the Flower Moon. And I was thinking, man, this is nothing compared to what I've seen you do. I mean, this is you're almost by default walking away with the movie. Whereas in Killers of the Flower Moon, everybody was top of their game. And here she's, she gets to play the cool cowboy woman. And I guess she's not a cowboy. Is she supposed to be Native American in the reality of this movie? Because she talks about her land being stolen.
Yeah, I was trying to talk about something being kind of vague that I think adds to it. I wasn't able to come to a clear conclusion, but I like the idea that she games and outsmarts the system to get her land back.
Her story beats are probably the most fun too. When she goes and rescues them from the bats.
She throws the rope in, grab hold. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, no, we're here voluntarily. Join in. And then smash cut and she's like on a third bath.
Yeah.
Watching it the second time, and this I could be wrong, but because the first time I was like, I didn't get it. I was like, why does she think that they've been kidnapped? Because she says it with such certainty too. She was like, I came here because you were kidnapped by bandits. Then I realized the second time when I watched it today that I guess she has lived a loop, a reality where they have been kidnapped and she's going to rescue them.
Yeah, she saves Frank at the beginning of the movie.
Right. So that is kind of one of the frustrating things because I don't think the movie ever makes it clear how much she knows, how much she doesn't know, right? If she's aware of the loop and she knows everything that's happening, to the point where she saves Frank at some point and she tells him to load the gun at another point or whatever, why are there other times where she gets caught unawares? Like, I don't understand, but either way, I think that she's fun. She has just presence, even though half the movie she's just animated, but you can still, you can go like, that's somebody that knows what she's doing. And I think, I don't have a problem with the cast, but there's different levels. Like, would you say it's like Lily Gladstone, then David Arquette, and then everybody else? Or is there more of like a gradation in the cast?
I would side with you on that. And for like Alex Cox is obviously someone who's been around movies quite a bit, and his character is just kind of annoying, so it's kind of hard to throw him in that category. But yes, from like a line delivery perspective and just like a presence perspective, you're exactly right. In my opinion, Lily Gladstone and David Arquette are obviously the folks who know most what they're doing on set, and then everyone else is just kind of figuring it out. And to be fair to the movie's execution, the style and presentation of it covers up perceived shortcomings from the acting perspective. So I applaud the idea of that not being as important as it could be in just a straightforward live action movie.
Yes, that's a good point. I wonder if it works both ways, though. I wonder if it also handicaps some actors or some aspects of the performance. I honestly can't tell you if Bruno is a good actor or not.
You and I both saw him die. Got shot because of you, Frank.
You listen to me. Nobody got shot back there, and I went to jail, but nobody got dead.
You know the marshal shot him on account of you broke into that store, Frank.
I know we joked about the accent, and that might be a little bit of it. But there are moments where I really bought his emotions, his delivery. And there were others I'm like, is this right? But it could just be also that the animation or the way that it was presented in particular was a little distracting, and that didn't help the performance. I don't know. But I felt that Frank, on the other hand, was stronger just overall. And then I did like a quick glance at their filmographies on IMDb, and it seemed like Frank had more experience. I was like, okay, maybe it's just that, the guy that plays Frank has done more stuff, so that maybe shines through a little bit more.
Bruno.
Yeah?
You're right all along.
About what?
Ryan and Blackie, doesn't matter.
I didn't get to make this joke in Contrarians Corner, and I'm annoyed now because I was so proud of it. I was going to say that David Arquette is in the Eric Roberts stage of his career, where you'll just see him show up in random stuff and you never know if it's going to be good or not.
Exactly.
Like, that he's a good actor, but that doesn't guarantee that he's going to be in a good movie or even that he's going to be good in the movie. It's just that, he will take any project. So it doesn't surprise me to see him here. It doesn't surprise me that he's good either, But just as well, it could have been a terrible movie with a terrible performance from him.
It is funny. I mean, it's David Arquette. It's Dewey, so it's always, I have to check myself sometimes and be like, yeah, he's a good actor. Because I always he's been in movies that I've been watching since I was a kid, and he's been a goofball, growing up in the turn of the millennium when he was, such a goof in every appearance he did and whatnot. It's interesting just with the memories I have of him from when I was younger that he's now in movies like this where he is the elder statesman.
Yep.
It's more interesting with the Lily Gladstone dynamic because she was a year away from a role that would change her fortunes, both metaphorically and literally. I agree with you that it's not on the level of Killers of the Flower Moon. I would argue Martin Scorsese is a little bit better and a more seasoned director than Jeff Marslet. So I think Marty was probably able to dial in or tap into something a bit more in her. But again, to the original point of the acting in this, Lily Gladstone stands head and shoulders above most of the people she's surrounded by. And it's one of those things for the acting, the level of acting being kind of what it is for the most part in this movie. I can't even do the thing of like, well, it looked like it was fun to make, because I don't even know what the experience of making a movie like this is. It looks like it's all like it's shot and then there's a filter put over the top of it, because it does look all like real. It doesn't look like motion capture or anything like that. So I don't know if, from hitting your marks or emoting or facial expressions or things like that, if that was really drilled with, the fellows who played Frank and Bruno, or if just the director was like, fuck it, this isn't going to matter anyway. We're just going to make you look like Pixar characters.
Well, as good an actress as Lily Gladstone is, though, I did not buy at all the romantic side of the story once it was about her and Bruno. And it almost, again, that was another moment that made me second guess. I was like, did I miss something? Did I miss a true moment of connection between them? And, but again, rewatching it today, I'm like, nope, I caught it all. It kind of comes out of nowhere, which I am fine with it coming out of nowhere when it's a joke, right? Like, oh, it's a big surprise that she wanted to marry him so she could get the land back. Like it even makes sense and it's funny and all that stuff. And then it also makes sense that she would be like, all right, well, it's over now. Go find your friend because this was not meant to be real. But then for them to try to give it some sort of emotional weight at the end when she comes back for him, and the implication is that they both actually have feelings for each other. Like I never felt it. And I guess you didn't either.
Yeah, and I can't imagine there being someone who watched this movie that was pulling for the love story of Bruno and Lindy.
Bruno's family, maybe, like the actor's parents.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Like, please give us a love story so we can understand what's happening.
This is just paper. Without it, we aren't married anymore. You're free. I'm free.
So we talked about the narrator. We had some fun with the idea of the film crew in Contrarians Corner. Is that something we could have done without also?
I mean, yes, but my counter pitch would be that they needed to be a bigger presence, because I find that fun. Even if I don't know exactly what the hell they're doing, like what their purpose is, the idea that you have this tiny crew documenting what's happening in multiple realities, like you can have a lot of fun with that. And actually they do in this movie, like the final time that they show up and they accidentally run over David Arquette.
Yeah,
and then
that's funny.
Yeah, they introduce Frank to rock and roll. They take him to a payphone. I mean, that kind of stuff is like, that's fun. Can we do this through the entire movie? Just get rid of the narrator, get rid of memory, and instead it's just these guys who are documenting this for whatever reason, and they kind of weave in and out of the story, and every now and then maybe nudge a little bit of exposition our way or the character's way, and or even you see them. Now I'm like completely rewriting the movie, but you get rid of the narrator. There's no memory. You see this crew here and there. You don't know what they're doing. Maybe you can start getting an idea, but you're not sure. And then they have a big moment towards the third act or on the way to the third act where what happens in the movie happens, right? Like Frank runs into them. They actually have an interaction. And then they explain to him what's going on. And they explain it to Frank, but they're also explaining it to us. And not like a bullshit vague explanation, but they actually tell you exactly what's happening. And so, you get the best of both worlds, because you spent a solid hour, maybe hour and 15 minutes of the movie having fun trying to figure out what's happening and grasping at the hints that they've been putting out. And then you get the satisfaction of these characters explaining to you and telling you, yeah, well, you got this right, you got this wrong, and then you're all set for the big chaotic climax where things keep repeating themselves and all that stuff. So here you go. I've talked myself into keeping the characters and expanding the roles.
I think if you cut the narrator out and then replace that time with expanding on the film crew and not really explaining why they're there, just one of those things, every once in a while you'll come across a movie that has something, just, there's a plant sitting there and you're like, why is that there? And, oh, okay. The film crew is just kind of, they're reoccurring from time to time. You get some more conversation between the three of them and dynamics. Yeah, I think there's a place for it. Just got to get that fucking architect out of here.
Man, what was his name? Gage? George? Cage? Page.
Patrick Page. Yes.
There you go. He's the big loser in this episode, and he wasn't even bad. It was just, he was saddled with a bad role. As we're talking about it, though, Alex, I just realized that I was wrong. My biggest problem with the movie is not that it doesn't make sense. I mean, that is definitely a problem. But the reason it's a problem is going back to the wedding, divorce, love story between Bruno and Lily Gladstone. I think that if I had connected emotionally to that relationship, or more easily to the relationship between Bruno and Frank, that friendship that seems to be fragile through the entire movie, I think maybe I could get past the nonsense. I wouldn't care so much that I don't know exactly what's happening, that some things don't make sense, if I'm just focused on the fact that they're friends and that they have this tension between them, and are they going to be friends at the end of the movie or not, and they are, and how do they overcome this, how do they learn to trust each other? So that's really, I'm revising my critique.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think that the biggest failing of the movie when it comes to someone like me is that I don't feel its heart. I think that he has a lot of big ideas, but it's all very intellectual, and I don't know how the characters really feel about each other, And that's, I mean, obviously the easiest example is the Lily Gladstone wedding divorce story. But I think also on a more important level, it's just the friendship between these two guys, because they're really the constant through the entire movie. We start with them, and we end with them, and they make big choices. And like I see on paper, right? I guess people would argue back and they would tell me, but you see them. You see that they care for each other, right? He waited for his friend for like 3 years, went to pick up his friend from jail, and they stick together and they come back for each other and so on. But I mean, I don't know. I just didn't feel it. How do you feel about that friendship? Am I just too cold-hearted? Did you feel that they were friends like on a very deep level?
The problem is these guys aren't, the acting doesn't make one buy into it, You think they're acting. You don't think they're bros, They're
right.
not Wayne and Garth, or, any pairing that you want to, even like Batman Forever is a recent example of like great acting, because Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey play off each other so well in that movie, but we all know can't sanction your buffoonery, And these guys here, yeah, there's a deep relationship that's attempted to be expressed in the story of this movie, but these guys, and look, I don't know either of them. They could be wonderful dudes, and this is like their freshman outing. They're rookies in the game still, but I think the failing of that dynamic is just the acting isn't believable, that their ride or dies.
I think that is the simplest explanation, right? That's why we have great actors, and then we have actors that are hopefully on the way to becoming great.
Yes.
And like I mentioned a little bit ago, I mean, it could also be that the aesthetic backfires. Maybe it's a lot harder to read emotion in your eyes and your facial expression when you're drawn as a cartoon.
That's also a fair call.
Speaking of acting, my last bit about acting, Alex, I'm going to call out what I think is the best moment of acting in the movie.
Okay.
And it's not Lily Gladstone. We're going to go back to David Arquette. It's when they ambush, Arquette and his pal ambush Bruno, Frank, and Lily Gladstone, and there's a kerfuffle. Lily Gladstone escapes, Frank runs away, and Bruno beats the shit out of David Arquette. The other guy, not Matthew Fox, is already passed out because, the gun blew up in his hand. And so Bruno beats the shit out of David Arquette and then ties him up. He ties his hands behind his back, and then he's telling him, they're arguing about what's going to happen next. Bruno's just going to leave him there. And then he feels bad. He's like, it was really cold, so he brings him a blanket, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna leave you the bottle of whiskey here. He grabs the bottle of whiskey and brings it over to Arquette, and Arquette gives him a look that is like, come on, man.
Yeah.
And then Bruno's like, oh yeah, okay. And then he gives him he helps him drink from the bottle. That look from David Arquette that is fucking acting, dude. Because I got it. And it's like a second, if that micro expression, but you get it, and it's funny, it's economical. And it sets up like a very good moment. He just did that by just tilting his head a little bit and just giving that look. So, you young actors making your way through the Hollywood machine.
The titans of the industry, the Arquettes,
Yeah, that's...
To be fair, they're a bit of a dynasty.
Okay, now you help me tie his hands together.
Well, how am I supposed to do that? After you've already hogtied me, you moron.
It's a movie that I don't want to go as far. One of the reviews you said used the tale as old as time cliche of swing and a miss, and I don't know if I want to go that far. And I accuse this movie of being pretentious, and all the things that are coming to my mind right now of how I want to frame it sound like the most pretentious shit in the world. So, like, this movie has a very high opinion of itself. And I think if I wanted to be crass, I would say it's pretty far up its own ass. I think a filmmaker had an idea that had the possibility of being pretty cool, and creative is definitely the word to throw in there. But I think somewhere along the way, the idea of this movie kind of got overvalued by the makers, and it ends up falling kind of flat because it's going so hard, it's going so big, and that's fine, but it doesn't have like a solid story to fall back on. And more so, it doesn't have like this wow performance to fall back on. I don't know why I'm bringing Southland Tales up again, which one, this is like half the runtime of Southland Tales, so that's a victory. Two, this still makes more sense than Southland Tales.
100%.
And yeah. And three, I'm not trying to say that Southland Tales nailed from an acting perspective, because there's fucking 30 people in that movie that are all acting in different films. So this has some positives to it. I think the idea of going big, you have to have like something to hang your hat on, though. Otherwise, it will come across to most audiences as swing and a miss. You said something in the first half, though, that I agree with to a certain extent. This movie, and like reading some of the reviews and the reception that it got on the festival circuit, there are film critics out there who can be convinced that what they're supposed to think what they're watching is good and deep. And that is not the fault of the filmmaker, but I could see a fair amount of folks watching this and convincing themselves they're supposed to like it, if that makes any sense at all.
I wish I could remember when was it that this has come up. It's come up more than once, because I know in my real life it's something that I consider my life outside the recording. The idea of the
behind the mic.
Yes. The idea of the festival experience, and I know most famously, Alex, I don't know if I've ever said it on the show, but I probably have told you in person, when I watched The Artist, I watched it at the Austin Film Festival, and I thought it was a good movie. I mean, it might still be. I haven't watched it since, but it was the perfect festival setting. It was like a packed auditorium. It was a Paramount, we're a packed old-timey theater. The guy that came out and introduced it set the tone perfectly. He said, we're in the perfect venue to watch this kind of movie because it's an old-time theater. And when you're watching a movie in a film festival, not always, but there are ways in which it definitely pumps you up. It preps you to have the best experience possible. If the movie has something, to begin with, I've had awful festival experiences too, for similar reasons, right? Like maybe they set you up the wrong way, or they set you up for a movie that ends up not being what plays, right? The thing about The Artist, just to close that, is that after watching it, all the criticisms that I read or heard about it, I was like, yeah, I mean, that's that. I don't disagree with any of that. So it enhances your experience. I think it makes it more intense sometimes when you watch it at a film festival, because it feels special. It feels like, oh, well, I'm watching something that I might not get to watch anywhere else. That was not the case with The Artist, but I've seen plenty of movies at film festivals where it was like, well, they didn't have distribution, and who knows, and you kind of appreciate, that's like the perfect environment to appreciate a big swing, because
exactly.
Yeah, I said in Contrarians Corner, and it was a good transition to real talk, because I felt it was true. I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing. In a way, it's a great thing to make a movie not worrying about how am I going to sell this. I just make the movie because it's something that I want to make. In the perfect world, that's just how all movies will be made, I guess. But at the same time, it was like a movie like Quantum Cowboys. And I could be wrong, but it's just, I don't know how that anybody watches that. I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to make our money back on this.
Yeah, great call out there. That's watching this as like a executive producer or studio head or whatnot, and being like, I don't know about this, but if you're at Fantastic Fest and in a sold out theater, and you had heard, that this movie's crazy, it looks wild, it's going to live up to that expectation, but the idea that John and Jane Q. Public would flock to a film like this is laughable.
I think, well, actually, first of all, it's funny that you said Fantastic Fest, because I am pretty sure that that's how Katie and Oti watched it. It's not the Fantastic Fest from here, from Austin. Like, there's a Fantastic Fest in Australia.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, right? And I don't think it's associated. I think they just share the name. But
it's like how there's a free play arcade in Denton, Texas, and a free play arcade in Toronto. I think that it's just a coincidence.
But I think that the other side of it is that, I mean, I would like to think that the people that made the movie also knew this, right? And so the reason why you swing this big is because you're not interested in saying, hey, I'm going to make you money with this movie. But look, I can make a movie, and I can I can handle big ideas, and I can frame shots, and I can direct actors and all stuff. So you could hire me to direct your movie. So it's not like I don't understand how this movie came to be, There are movies where I just scratch my head and I just don't know. But in this one, no, it makes sense. And going back to the audience reaction, the critics' reactions, I think that it's definitely, if you watch it in an environment that's curated to make you love the movie, that's going to affect how you experience it. And who knows, maybe if you and I had sat down to watch it at one of these screenings, we would have come out of it also a little more positive, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a very charming Q&A after the screening where the filmmakers go over the apparent plot holes, and by the end of it, you're like, oh, they were right. It makes perfect sense. I don't know.
I think it's fair of a call out for as kind of just meh as I am on this movie. There's a time and a place and a way in which I could see myself having like been taken by this movie. Because just what you said, and we've talked about it since the dawning of this podcast, the experience you have with a movie, especially in a theater setting with an audience, can really shape your appreciation and ironically, your memory of a film.
I'm never big on the idea of, oh, you need to watch this on the big screen, but I am more accepting of the idea of you need to watch this with an audience. And, that could make also a big difference when watching Quantum Cowboys, right? Like, you're in with an audience that's really into it, and that can be infectious. So I like there was a quote that said that the reviewer likes that this exists, that somebody took a chance and made this movie. And I agree with that. And, how many times, Alex, do we complain about just movies that are like lowest common denominator, and that, they make the easy jokes and they just do bare minimum effort. And this is the complete opposite. So if only for that, I'm like, fuck yeah. Keep going.
I agree. And this movie also, now that I've watched it, I know there will be the most random of conversations at some point in my life where it's someone, a girlfriend's brother or something, just trying to figure out conversation points. And then like Lily Gladstone's on the TV and they say something like, I saw this really weird movie that was like half animated with her one time. I'm like, Quantum Cowboys? It exists for a conversation like that to happen at some point in my future.
You go, Quantum Cowboys? And the guy's like, no, what's that?
No, Killers of the Flower Moon.
All right. So, Alex, where do you land after all this talk?
It's still going to land probably dead center and a C. The ambition is there, and there's things I appreciate about it, but the execution of the story is a bit clunky for me, and the quality of acting varies pretty dramatically.
Yeah, I am going to do 3 stars, which is positive, overall positive. I just need heart. That's what I was missing. I started Real Talk by saying that I needed more logic. And I mean, I did need that, but I would forego the logic if there was a little more heart, or any heart, really. That's the thing. I'm just watching this movie as a series of things happening, but there were 2 moments that I should call them out. There were 2 moments where I felt something. One is when, and I checked how long it had been. It's exactly at an hour in, and I think it's after she rescues them from the bats, and they're just writing single line. I think it's Lily Gladstone's at the front, then Bruno, then Frank, and then Bruno starts whistling, then Lily Gladstone joins in, and Frank is kind of like rolling his eyes, but then eventually he joins also. And then there's a wide shot of the 3 of them whistling and as they're writing. And that was the one time where I'm like, holy shit, they feel like friends. Like I can feel like, not just that they feel like friends, but I can feel that there's an evolution in the relationship, right? Like when you see Frank joining in, making the choice to join in with the whistling, that meant something. And I had an emotional reaction to that. So that was one. The other one is, we barely touched on this in Contrarians Corner because it's just kind of it's just another stop in the journey. But when they meet with the black guy that I guess he's the guy that sets them up with the bats, right? And so they're hearing the drums playing, and the guy explains that this is like the music from his country, from his origins. I mean, they're not specific, but I guess he's also an immigrant, and he has a line that I was like, this is good. I really wish there was more of this in the movie, because I think Bruno says, why do you keep playing the music? Doesn't it make you sad? Doesn't it remind you of home? And the guy says something about how like you shouldn't forget the past. Forgetting the past doesn't mean that you're going to stop being sad about it, but remembering the past means that you may not make the same mistakes again.
Yeah.
And it was very well put compared to other things that the movie says, where they kind of try to a little too hard to be clever in the way they say things. Like this was something that felt very genuine, and it was a very powerful statement about not just about the gimmick of the movie, right? Like, oh, well, you need to remember what's happening so you don't make the same mistake over and over again, but also just overall about life. And, should you really try to forget about your history when instead you should just keep it in consideration so that you can move forward and evolve. So that moment also got me excited. But that's, we're talking about like 2, like maybe 30-second moments in 99 minutes of movie. So I needed more of that.
Yeah.
But still, 3 stars. It's a
well
positive. Yes. I would recommend it, and it sounds like you too in a fashion, in
a way. Yeah.
Yeah. With a warning, But that's it. That was Quantum Cowboys, Katie, OT. Obviously we didn't love it the way that you did, but I am glad that you loved it. And I'm glad that you threw it our way to discover.
Agreed.
Hopefully you enjoyed the episode. Now, Alex, coming up next, man, this is a 100% tomato meter score, a festival darling. So, of course, we have to swing the other way. Do you know what we're doing next?
Every town has an Elm Street.
Is this the Freddy's Dead?
Yes, it is.
My God.
I've never seen it. You have, because you've watched every Nightmare on Elm Street movie.
I've seen it once. This is the one with Breckenmeyer, if I remember correctly, and this is the one with the 3D sequence in it. So there you go.
It is 22% on the tomato meter.
That is generous.
Well, it's coming to us courtesy of Stu from the Stu War Order. I don't know. I guess he'll provide us with his reasoning, but I'm excited.
Oh, hell yeah. This is Nightmare on Elm Streets. We've only done the original and the remake, correct?
Yes.
I think so. We did a couple Friday the 13th.
Wait, we did the commentary for New Nightmare.
That's right. All right. So yeah, this will be interesting.
All right. Well, but looking forward to that. Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. That's next on the main feed. On the Patreon feed, Alex, for the bonus episode, we're going back to the beginning of everything, courtesy of patron Ben Murray, who wants us to review a classic of classics, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which I've never watched, but I've heard so much about. Are you familiar with Dr. Caligari and his exploits?
I'm familiar with by title, and I'm familiar with the idea of it's you have to tighten up your collar a little bit more and sit up a bit straighter when you talk about it, because it gives you a lot of street cred.
Familiar with his title of doctor?
Yes, exactly.
PhD.
I knew him when he was a practicing nurse.
As far as video reviews, this time we're going separate ways, Alex. I am watching The Stuff, and you're watching the original Mad Max.
That's a fun movie, The Stuff, that is. I don't know if I've ever seen the original Mad Max, so let's do it.
Mel Gibson back in the fray before he was as problematic as he is today. That is John Amenta assignments. As far as the After Hours, Contrarians After Hours returns. With a very recent trip to the movies. 2 of them, in fact, Alex. And both times we went together. The first time, it's very much an Alex movie we watched. This movie, Alex, I wouldn't have known it was coming out if you hadn't been championing it. Tell me about
you would.
Would I?
Yeah, you would have heard. I mean, it's an Emily Blunt movie, and with the effort, well, we would also know because the Safdies, this is a Benny Safdie movie. That's true.
Can you imagine The Rock hearing this being called an Emily Blunt movie?
Well, still, as much love as I have for Dwayne, and as we'll talk about his would-be tour de force performance in this, I think Emily Blunt still is. People like you and me would see. Oh, it's Emily Blunt. The Smashing Machine, the biopic of Mark Kerr. Well, kind of biopic. It's centered around several years of his life, based on this documentary of the same name. Julio and I were recording this on October 5th, and it just dropped on Friday the 3rd. But Julio and myself were able to get into an advanced IMAX screening, and so talk about that. Talk about the movie. Talk about Dwayne.
You got free shirts.
And how we feel about it. We did get free shirts. But yeah, don't worry. I will make sure, Julio, to explain all of the mixed martial arts accuracies and inaccuracies that are depicted in this movie.
I wouldn't expect any less. And then a movie that I've anticipated since it was announced, since I found out that it was coming out. And I think, pretty sure I brought it up when I did that episode with Jordan last year, when we were talking about things that we're looking forward to in 2025. And that is the new PTA, One Battle After Another, following tradition. Of course, Alex and I said, let's get tickets. And we assembled a squad. We went with Eddie, Jordan, Kinsey.
70 millimeter,
just a packed house. And we enjoyed PTA's latest and, in quotation marks, greatest, maybe, question mark at the end. It'll be an interesting conversation. Minor spoiler. I think I like it more than Alex does. So we'll see what happens. But all that is on the Patreon channel, patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. Check it out. And now, let's get out of here, Alex.
Let me grab my African horse and we'll ride out of here. Welcome to our end credits.
Or, as we usually call them, our perennial plugs.
We start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years, who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand and take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothgieser is the man behind our logo and all the art you see related to our show. reach out to him and let him know how much you like that little tomato. His email address is mildemonios@hotmail.com and his website is mildemonios.pe. That's MILDEMONIOS. Hans, thank you for all your support.
For those interested in the regularly absurd world of professional wrestling, Joe and the boys over at latenightgrin.com have you covered. Tell them the Contrarians sent you.
And we like to close with special thanks to our social media team of Zoe Perez and Coriari. Each of the social media accounts we mentioned in the introduction look as good as they do because of their work.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.
Just for old time's sake, I really don't care who you see.